everyone. Welcome back. This is Talking Spaces podcast of Convening for Equality, the CFE. Hope you're well. Hope you're doing really well. You're keeping warm and taking those warm drinks in this El Nino weather. My name is Pepe. I'm your host today. And as you can see, I'm here with lovely humans. My pronouns are he, him, his. And as we convene today, we're having a conversation around navigating the constitutional challenge, the petitions, the law that is in court, the Anti Homosexuality Act 2023. With me is, I'll give them that opportunity to introduce themselves. But briefly, this episode today of Convening for Equality, Talking Spaces, you've watched some of our episodes, I'm certain, because we've been seeing the feedback and all. We're really going to get into the conversation of how did we get here? Where did this start? And what is our status in the Constitutional Court? But also, what does this mean for, we are currently going into this festive season. Already we are beginning to take the temperature of elections. What does this mean for that period? We're well knowing that the law does not only affect the way its title says, homosexuality. It doesn't only affect queer or LGBTIQ persons. It affects everyone. But I'll allow my panelists to introduce themselves, and then I will be directing some questions to each of them to delve in. Please introduce yourself, your name, what you do when you're not here, what's your pronoun, and what makes you tick. Yeah? Thank you. I'll start on my left.
Hello everyone, my name is Rose Wakikona. What I do when I'm not here, I am a lawyer by profession, a human rights lawyer. I've been practicing law for the past 10 years, so in and out of the courtroom, doing legal and policy advocacy. I'm a feminist, and I'm very happy to be here and share with everyone. What makes me tick? I'm just tick now.
You're just tick.
Naturally. I was born like this. I woke up like
All right.
this. Yeah.
Nice one. To my right.
Yeah. And I just learned today during a meeting we had that Rose is a god. I like that she uses the word god and not goddess.
Yeah.
But I like to use both simultaneously. So we are in the midst of a goddess. And luckily, she's on our side. She's one of the allies we can vouch for as the LGBT community, just to put that out there. So we are very sure that when Rose is in a space, she will represent us and take our issues seriously, but more importantly, represent us as we should be represented in a very objective way. With that preamble, I like preambles. My name is Claire Byarugaba, Muchiga by birth. I would probably be French if I was to choose. If I was to choose anything else, I would have loved to be French. For reasons we cannot discuss in this podcast. Some of you know.
I was about to ask you very
but
I'll put a disclaimer.
Yeah.
Currently, actually with Chapter for Uganda since 2015, as a Equality and Non-Discrimination Coordinator. I also founded the first ever parents initiative, Parents of LGBT Individuals. That's PFLAG Uganda. We're doing amazing work, and in fact, one of the mothers is a petitioner in this very court challenge we're going to be discussing. So I'm very proud of the work that PFLAG has been able to do since 2019. But I've also been involved in activism since 2012. So I would like to think that's what makes me tick. I've been in both good and good ways. There are no bad ways to be an activist. I'm very proud to wear that mantle with all the challenges that come with it. Very proud to be an activist since 2011. Very proud to see the growth of the movement, the ebbs and flows of the movement, that with everything that comes at us, we're able to continue to stand and fight, despite it being exhausting. But I know that there is few and many of us that will continue to do the Lord's work.
Amen.
Yeah, I'm also a mindfulness
I
and
see.
meditation teacher, because I believe that working on the mind in terms of self-care, being mindful of who you are, how you approach certain situations is very powerful. And I do hope that the community and our allies can consider practicing mindfulness and meditation. And of course, as a certified mindfulness and meditation teacher, I do offer myself to extend this gift to our allies and LGBT community. Thank you very much.
Nice, akalango
I
kaisizaawo.
did forget, but I was going to state the obvious. I'm also the co-convener of Convening for
please.
Equality. It's one of the reasons why I'm here. But very proud of the work again that we've been able to do since February. Again, it speaks to the resilience and the power that we have within the movement in Uganda and beyond.
Yeah, thank you so much for those powerful introductions, and we'll dive right into it. I think firstly, the Anti Homosexuality Act. How did we get here? And then I would like you to tie that into Convening for Equality, because they seem to move simultaneously. But also we are in court. I'm a petitioner on one of the petitions. And where are we? One, how did we get here? Brief us on Convening for Equality. What is it doing towards the petition? And then we've been hearing terms like conferencing. Tell us how many petitions are there. In Rose, you're a lawyer. However, break it down for us gently. What is conferencing? And then the timelines, like what's all the conferencing about, and where are we going with it? Are we going to get to a point where it will be consolidated into one petition, and then all of us have to, rally ourselves as one? And we're also going into the festive season. I know it's like a loaded question. We're going to this festive season. Are there any chances, within the timelines, that, to borrow Auntie Becky's words, if you know, you know, will it be a Christmas present or will it be a Christmas heartbreak? Let's start with CFE and the genesis.
Thank you, Pepe. How did we get here? I think we've always been here. We know, of course, that we're dealing with a second anti-homosexuality law within 10 years. Again, that's a loaded thing for any community to be subjected to this onslaught of hate at the level of legally legally allowing state-sponsored homophobia and discrimination to go on the loose is, number one, completely unacceptable. This is not what our government should be doing. But we find ourselves again having to face the monster between 2009 and 2014. But I think the primary reason why it came back was because in the last constitutional challenge, the Constitutional Court declared the law null and void on a technicality. They basically stated that the law had been passed, the bill had been passed into law by Parliament without quorum. So that always left space for MPs to just say, okay, let's correct this mistake that you said we did. If the issue is that we didn't have quorum on the day it was passed, we'll go back to Parliament and pass it. I think they need 3/4 of Parliament to pass a law legally, a bill into law legally. So there was always that gap. There was always that space for a law to return. But the other reason, obviously, is that the homophobia continues to be rife. The fact that the LGBT community is the favorite scapegoat for this government. If you realize, we did a lot of monitoring when this law is brought, or any such law is brought, and we realized that it was around the time when the government wanted to distract Ugandans from issues that were really pertinent to their livelihoods, to their lives, to their social lives, their economic lives, and it has always worked. So government, as we know it, will always use a tool to distract, to scapegoat a community and distract from pertinent issues that government should be focusing on, but would rather divert people's attention away from. So if you're to look at what was happening when the law was introduced in Parliament, or when the bill was introduced, we know of the iron sheet scandal, and indeed, no one talks about that scandal anymore. It seems that Ugandans have forgiven the Speaker of Parliament for this terrible corruption that she was involved in. It looks like people are now focused on the vigilantism that this law of 2023 is bringing up. So I'm explaining about it in a kind of a roundabout way, but it's because it's not black and white. There are so many factors that cause or lead to the scapegoating of the LGBT community. But these laws that we consider state-sponsored homophobia, tools of discrimination, are absolutely unacceptable in any democracy. There's a saying that a good democracy, one of the markers of a good democracy is in how a country treats its minorities. Like, that's the least you can do as a government, that the minority groups that you have, the disadvantaged populations you have, are not further being discriminated against or being further oppressed. And the fact that it is at the level of government that the government endorses these terrible anti-gay laws is unacceptable. And that's why Convening for Equality was formed. We needed to galvanize the community. We needed to galvanize our allies again. Convening for Equality asked our allies and our community to again fight, and depending on who you ask, that can be a lot to ask, right? We were exhausted from 2014, and again having to deal with 2 anti-gay laws in 10 years for anyone really is very tough. So Meaning for Equality is bringing allies and community together to fight this law and other such legislations that we anticipate will come in the future, because it doesn't look like the government as it is now is going to let up on scapegoating and using whatever tools they can to distract from pertinent issues that they should be focusing on.
Thank you so much, Claire. You've really given us that background, and I'm sure it's informing our audience out there. Uh, the other part of the question was around the legalese, whatever's happening uh, through CFE. There were petitions. Council Rose. Council or just Rose?
Goddess.
Either way.
God.
I
Yeah.
worked hard for my titles, so I wear them with
All right.
pride.
Yes.
But
Hit
also
us
Rose
with
is just fine with me.
Okay.
I'm not really one. So just to add on to what Claire has said, the anti-homosexuality law, or the laws that criminalize same-sex relations, already after the 2014 endeavors and the overturn of the act, the parliament tried to reintroduce them through the Sexual Offences Act, which actually is currently still present. So the better part of last year was spent debating that. But because that particular law affected the sexual rights of both heterosexual couples and homosexual couples, it met a natural death because of the double standards that exist within our society. So when it went up to the president, he still sent it back with comments, again concerning issues to do with marital rape, whether you can rape your wife or not, and issues to do with consent, and what are the limits of consent. And it has died the natural death. So it has been tabled before the Legal Committee of Parliament for reconsideration. But that just shows us the double standards that exist in our society when it comes to sexual relationships between heterosexual couples and homosexual couples. Before the Anti-Homosexuality Act was passed in March, the Convening for Equality had an inkling that it was going to happen. And already the legal committee had preparations to challenge the act in court. So it wasn't something that took everyone by surprise to say that, oh, the act has passed, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? But people were putting together their thoughts in order to try and challenge this act in court, as was done in 2014. And lo and behold, the act was passed. I think it was 23rd March 2023. And the very next day, a petition was filed. Not one, but two petitions. So one petition was led by Chapter 4. The second petition was led by Hiraf. And the third petition was led by someone who is a citizen in Uganda, an advocate who watched the proceedings of Parliament and felt that no, this doesn't align with our constitutional obligations. And he also filed a petition. And along the way, members of the community came and joined him, and they applied to be joined as interested parties within the case. And now it also doesn't just have one petitioner, but it has about 4 petitioners as I speak, including another LGBT organization. So right now we have 4 petitions, 3 that are known by the CFE. The last petition was filed just recently, I think about 2 weeks ago, by Bishop James, I think Luanga, something like that. And for him, what he's doing is to try and challenge the issue of privilege between a religious leader and a person who comes to confess, because the act makes it as a duty that if you know that someone is engaged in homosexuality, you're immediately supposed to go to police and report. The only exception is for lawyers. That was the only exception that was made. And I think because the Uganda Law Society at that time raised and said no, professional privilege is protected. But religious leaders never rose up to challenge that clause. Neither did health workers. For them, they just decided to remain silent. They were going with the homophobic sentiment that everyone had. But beyond those 4 overarching petitions that are challenging the act in the Constitutional Court, we also have about 16 applications. So these applications differ. Now, from a bigger suit, you can have smaller applications that contribute towards the major suits. So they have to first be decided before the major suits are heard. So the major applications
I think the biggest one was the one that was filed by the Attorney General to consolidate the matters, which means he wants them to be heard together, not independently and individually. And I think this is the mind of everyone who has filed a suit, that these matters need to be heard together. The others, which maybe I may highlight because they are not emerging from the CFE, is a petition to be added as an interested party by Pastor Semper, who is saying that the Attorney General was against the bill when it was being argued in Parliament. So he doesn't trust that the Attorney General is going to vigorously defend it before the Constitutional Court. Therefore, he needs to be added to add that extra voice so that the judges may hear why the bill was passed in the first place. Because during the proceedings of the Parliament, actually the Attorney General came up and delivered a report in Parliament saying that there is no need for another law because we already have the Penal Code Act, which criminalizes same-sex relations. But if anyone can remember, that was shot down by the speaker at that particular time. The second person who has who wants to be added as an interested party is Family Life Network. That one is led by Stephen Langa, who we all know is anti-sexual reproductive health and rights. In any fora, he has been part of the sexuality education case and several other cases where he feels that do not uplift the rights of the family. So he also wants to be added, and they are of course being represented. The other applications are for people to be joined as amicus. We have different organizations. I'll not belabor, but some of them include UNAIDS, there is SALC, there is CALS. We have independent health service providers who have also applied. So all of them want to, like we have, experts? Yes, individual experts, but also people who provide HIV-related health services. Yeah, so they've also applied to be joined as experts, and many other applications keep on coming in, and those are also there and they need to be added. The other applications that I know that are there are for the temporary injunction to halt the implementation of the act, because they tried to hear it earlier, but court refused. They claimed they didn't have an available judge to hear or something like that, which was just weird, but it's also something that needs to be disposed of. Yes. Yeah, so when you go into trial, all those are there. So collectively, we have about 20 to 21 cases ongoing, but the major ones are 4. And those are the ones that will deliver to us the judgment of either overturning or upholding the act as a way to conclude the legislative cycle, because it always ends up in court to test its constitutionality. So we've been going through what they call pre-trial processes. You know, there are different parts of a trial. There is the trial, which we always call the pre-trial, which looks at pleadings, where you file your papers in court. You tell court, this is why we are here. Then the other party also responds. Then you also respond. So conferencing is supposed to make sure that you have completed that part, that everyone has filed all the documents that they want, so that the matter can then go to the panel of judges. So in the Constitutional Court, the expectation is that we are going to have a panel of 5 judges, because that's what the law prescribes, that 5 judges must sit and hear the matter. So they can only sit and hear the matter after the conferencing is done. And conferencing can't end if people keep filing, or if this one says, I also have this, I also have this. So that is what court is grappling with. And for the past 3 months, what we've been trying to finalize. But when you're finalizing this, another application comes in, another petition comes in. This one says, hey, I have another affidavit, I have another. So court is trying to finalize all that. But the expectation is that we were given until 28th to finish everything. So we are appearing before a single judge to conclude conferencing. So that he says that, okay, you have all filed whatever it is you want. Now let us bring together a panel of judges to now hear the matter. So we move from pre-trial, we go into the hearing stage. Yeah, so the mind of the court is that they want to hear the matter before Christmas.
Tell me.
And
When I hear
tentatively,
Christmas.
and tentatively, we are informed by the court that the mid-December is the time that has been set apart for the judges to sit and hear, not do pre-trial, but to actually hear the matters and dispose of them. Whether or not they'll deliver a judgment after then, it's rare for judges to deliver judgments immediately. They are given 60 days within the room.
But
within
lives
the
at
rules.
stake.
Yes, but they also take their time. They are judges.
Scratches the ear. Wow. Rose, as you're submitting, my mind just kind of went back to 2014. And 2014, Claire mentioned earlier that the law was nullified on a technicality. What are we seeing as, what are those lessons? What can we compare taking 2014 and then 2023? What's different? And actually, Rose, you mentioned the penal code. And we've heard many times, we've even said that the law is unnecessary. Yeah, the penal code itself is actually very unnecessary and redundant, right? But isn't the current law sort of overriding what is already there? Already the penal code is harsh enough. And this, why is it important for us to challenge this AHA 2023 in the way that we are doing, but the penal code is there? Because there are law enforcement people that are implementing the penal code, but there's also another section that is implementing the current law. Like, just share your thoughts on whether they are actually complementing each other, or they're just, people are taking advantage of whatever exists to, to benefit themselves, either their power, their ego, their pockets through extortion and stuff like that. Let me start with you, Claire.
I think it's a very, very big win that that we have a hearing date at this point.
Yes.
Okay. And I know for a fact that it is very, very rare for constitutional matters to be handled in the way that the court challenge against the AHA have been handled. Yeah, it's very rare that the Constitutional Court is this quick with the hearings and the conferencing, and really even paying attention to a court challenge, especially over law that had supposedly so much support and popularity within the Ugandan society. So I would like to think that that is a good thing. No, I know that is a good thing for us. And it's testament to the amount of work, the amount of hard work, very strategic advocacy that we have done as CFE to ensure that this gets the attention of, number one, the president, but also that we make it easy for them to make this problem go away. Right? We know Parliament created a problem, 70 assented to the problem. Now it's been taken to the Attorney General to handle this problem. So the court challenge is an answer to making this problem go away. We all want this problem to go away. We want this Anti Homosexuality Act to go away and never come back. I would really like to think that the government and the legislative arm of governments are smart enough to know that it's unacceptable for this kind of behavior from them to continue. It's unacceptable. Again, two anti-gay laws in 10 years is completely unacceptable. So we hope that the judges will declare this law unconstitutional, so that we don't have any excuses as we did last time. Because last time the judges, it was a cop-out from judges. They had all the material, they had the constitution to depend on to declare the 2014 law unconstitutional. There was no excuse. But they chose an easy way out, a cop-out. So this time around, we are trusting that the legal team will represent us, the petitioners and the community at large, and all the interested parties to ensure that this law is declared unconstitutional. Because as I understand it, it would then be hard for Parliament to bring up another law of this nature. Even though they have a habit of sneaking in clauses, as they did with the Sexual Offences Act into other laws. But as a standalone law like this, I know activists, we've really worked hard to ensure that we lend a hand to the legal team to ensure that we make this problem go away. So I'm very hopeful that we're going to have a Christmas gift. Right? Again, it is really, I guess, is it unprecedented? It's unprecedented for a matter of that attracts so much popularity to go through the court system this quickly. And that's a testament to the work that we've been doing both publicly and in the background. Shall not go into detail of that, but I would like for those who are listening to, of course, understand that each court challenge, whatever work that you do, whichever matters you take to court, you have to be very intentional about the advocacy work that you're doing. Otherwise, we're not very sure that the judiciary is as independent as it should be. So you have to make them want this problem to go away. And I think that's where we have, this is the power that we have. We have made it, we're sure that the people that are concerned understand that they have to make this problem go away.
You've gotten me thinking, and I'll ask you, counsel. How important is it for the community to be present during these proceedings? I'm aware that there are community members who are petitioners, but the way the law is, I have to commend and really be proud of community members who are petitioners. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of everything in you to be able to stand up to death, because that's what the law is trying to do. How protected, how safe is it for queer petitioners to be present in court when these hearings are taking place? And should they even be? And if they don't appear, is there any kind of punishment or just a bit of information around that?
You had asked an initial question
Yes.
around the Penal Code Act and what it means.
Whether they are not
comparing.
clashing and...
So when the act first came out, before I come back to the issue of safety, when the bill was first tabled, it had a clause which was repealing the sections
145.
criminalizing same-sex relations in the Penal Code Act. But in the final bill, that particular section sort of disappeared. So we're left a bit in abeyance.
Yeah.
And maybe this is something that we also need to consider even as the legal committee. But of course, conversant of the fact that now we are in battle with the Attorney General, because he needs to give us an opinion as to how both these clauses are going to be implemented concurrently. Because initially it was repealing, but now the clause disappeared, and so that means that both are running concurrently, which is just confusing and crazy for many of us, because we know that the intention of the act was to repeal those provisions and act as a standalone, so that all same-sex couples are now charged under this new act.
New
so
act, yes.
there is a bit of confusion that needs to be ironed out. On the issue of safety, there is no safety. There is absolutely no guarantee of safety. In the courtroom, it's a public space. Court is supposed to be conducted in the open so that anyone can enter and anyone can go out. So they are open public hearings. The same thing with court documents. Court documents are public documents. So by your name being on the petition, already you have sort of outed yourself.
Okay.
So because anyone can access court documents. That is the nature of court. It's the way the justice system was set up, that court documents are supposed to be public. And hearings are conducted publicly. But there is beauty in showing support for your petition and appearing, but knowing very well that this is all conducted publicly. What I know about the media and its presence is that they're supposed to write to the registrar so that they can then be allowed to record and publicize what is happening within the courtroom, but that they are rarely refused that permission. So the likelihood of media being present is also, actually, I know most mainstream media houses have court reporters. So for them, they just wake up to go to court and look for salacious cases that they will then report back on. So again, that awareness at the back of your mind that perhaps your picture, your name may appear in the New Vision or the Daily Monitor the very next day. It exists.
But
and
also there are very many so-called religious hooligans who are invading the courts.
And they have applied to be interested parties. Stephen Langa is a religious leader, a pioneer for...
Let's not call them leaders. That's not leadership.
Pastor Sepa is always present.
Extremists.
And he comes fully robed in his reverend's garb.
Yeah.
So they'll be present, but it's almost like... And it's also not just on the part of physical harm, but also the triggering. Because these are people who are continuously attacking, not just online, on TV. These are the people who face every day on your TV and they are telling you you're bad, you're wrong, you're going to hell. And now they are before you. So again, that also is triggering. So mental wellness becomes key. But the safety is not there. It is the public hearing. The court documents are public, but there is beauty in showing solidarity with your petition. Because always the court will ask, but who are these people you're talking about? Where are they? And when they are not there, it reduces the burden on them because then they don't see the humans who are behind the impact of what you're challenging.
Wow, that kind of saddens me because there seems to be no protection anywhere. Just like when the committee hearings were happening in Parliament, and I think in some spaces I've talked about this, that there was no space for the community to submit. It had to be sort of allies who are submitting, and of course,
it was also they
law that is
bulldozed
made
over
like
the
that.
process.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Some community
They kind of
members
rushed.
applied to be hardened, and they were outrightly denied the opportunity to do so.
Beyond the petitions, what do we see? We talked briefly about it being a Christmas present.
It will be a Christmas
It will
gift.
be Christmas gift.
That is how I've planned it, and advocates never lie. It is factual. And the reason why, I've said, so it will be.
Yes.
And the goddess is here to witness.
Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed.
You know, back in 2013, when the then Parliament was debating the Anti Homosexuality bill of 2009. I remember it was December 23rd. We had gone home for holidays. I was coordinator of the Civil Society Coalition on Human Rights and Constitutional Law. I had updated how the bill is not on the Hansard. In other words, you can all go home and relax. We have one more year where we haven't had this law, bill be passed into law by Parliament. And lo and behold, the then Speaker pulled kind of our joy out of our hearts. I remember I don't know who informed us that the bill had been sneaked. It had to be sneaked onto the order paper, not the Hansard, onto the order paper last minute, and it was very intentional because Speaker Kadaga did not want to have the kind of attention that we had been imposing on Parliament not to pass the law. And within 10 minutes, Parliament passed the bill into law, and she did dub it as a Christmas gift to Ugandans, a Christmas gift to Ugandans. No one had asked for this gift. It did not put on the table people's food on the table for that Christmas. It did not buy people chicken, but she dubbed it as a Christmas gift. And I'll never forget how, as a community, we felt how dejected. That Christmas was a terrible one.
Already
we had
going home for Christmas was difficult for the queer community.
So it was that much
that
harder.
Particular year.
It was that much harder. So I'm trying to think of it as full circle. It happened in 2013. There was that terrible Christmas gift of the bill being passed by the then Parliament. Now, I truly believe that the courts of law, 10 years later, 2023, we're going to have a Christmas gift in the form of an annulment of this terrible law, and we shall never see this type of anti-gay law again in Uganda.
And the ancestors have definitely heard you. I said to them.
Indeed.
Yeah. 2024 is round the corner. This law, the way it is, it affects every Ugandan. Although Ugandans think it is just for a particular section of Ugandans and people within the Ugandan borders. We've already been seeing a bit of a fever of elections, 2026, sort of coming in, sneaking in, and part of even the discussion around the bill at the time seemed to be pointing to people scoring with their constituencies. Where does politics and rights of LGBTIQ persons intersect? And should it at any point? But also, what are your thoughts on candidates that will be standing? Like, how does this law play a part in politics? But also, what are you seeing as the future of our politics vis-a-vis queer rights in Uganda?
I think it's a balance of power. I was reading a journal article at one point, and they were talking about the rise of the anti-rights, anti-gender movements and how they are playing out, and why we see such a big push towards removing accountability from the state, but placing it on families, and therefore trying to uphold the nuclear heteronormative family,
which is so un-African.
Exactly. So for me, when I read that journal article, it just sort of clicked in my mind, because right now our government is not holding itself accountable for anything. They are absolutely not holding themselves accountable for the rampant corruption, for the fall in the rule of law, for the dying democracy, for the escalating inflation, for the rising cost of living. Like, there are so many social issues within our country, but the government doesn't want to hold itself accountable for these issues.
Lack of a transitional plan.
Exactly. So who do they blame? They will now go back to that rhetoric of the failure of families is what is leading to bad people. The failure of the families, single mothers, gay couples are the ones who are causing the rain not to rain. They are the ones causing people to become corrupt because they were not brought up properly. So, they try to make these linkages and then place the responsibility of the failure of the state on the traditional family. So now people are fighting so hard to uphold this idea of a family which never existed in the first place. When you look at some of the statistics from URSB, we have only about 30% married couples in the country. But then you're saying that all families should be aggregated to that level, which means that all people above 18 should be 100% in heterosexual nuclear marriage registered, which is not that true.
And we have 2 children.
Exactly, with their 2 children. But then we have child-headed homes, single-headed homes. We have families that are formed in so many different ways. But now they have demonized all other types of families except for this one, which is upheld as the pillar, that if we all align, all the problems of Uganda will suddenly disappear and go away. So for me, they have turned what would be a private issue into a political discourse. Being a feminist, I know how politicized women's bodies are. But then now the politicization is extending beyond the woman to several other people who do not conform to the ideals of society. So for me, I just think it is government abdicating. How that will impact in 2024 is that now the leaders who are going to seek re-election are going to use the very same rhetoric. It is not our fault that there is rising inflation. It's not our fault. It is because families are failing. And where are they failing? Those gay people. And that is it. So they'll just bring it back in order to abdicate accountability. That's why I think it's very important that court gives us a ruling before the election. I know the election cycle has already started, but it's not in full gear. If we can have that decision before the election cycle, then it takes away some of that power that maybe the political leaders would have. Otherwise, we may see another homophobic hysteria arise as we saw in January, February, March this year.
Yeah.
Clear.
It's crazy that well, not so crazy in Uganda, but it's crazy.
I remember the speaker calling anyone who said something positive about the LGBT community homosexualist.
It's as if you're automatically anti-family. You don't want kids, you don't want to get, like, you just...
So some of the messages that we've been giving to MPs and religious leaders is that you're actually promoting homosexuality. Because, number one, we just, as a community, we just want to be left in peace. Just want to hustle like all the other Ugandans. We want to live peacefully. We want to enjoy the rights that are inherent to us. These human rights that we are taking to court for interpretation should not be debated upon in the first place. Our human rights should never have been up for debate. They have never been up for debate. They are not up for debate. But unfortunately, we find ourselves in that position. That being said, they also know that they are promoting homosexuality, because a person in my village in Kavale, really, who is going about their lives digging to support themselves and their families, it cannot occur to them that these LGBT people are a problem, right? So what MPs have done is that they've taken a debate that shouldn't be a debate to Parliament, They are promoting homosexuality. Now each and every Ugandan knows what LGBT is, right? How that is received within the LGBT community, I don't know. But if we were to look at positives, I think what Parliament has done in this case, both in 2009, 2014, and now, is to remove the taboo, the taboo away from this LGBT or homosexuals, right? If anything, if we were to be grateful for them, is that they've removed kind of that taboo from the language, from the community. I mean, often to detrimental effects, but that is what has happened. And I'll say, if you're going to be grateful for that. But moving towards election, I do echo Council Rose's submission. We do need a judgment, and a positive judgment at that, the judgment that we want before the year ends, hence the Christmas gift. And as I said before, I would like to think that the government is smart enough not to reuse us as scapegoats, to attempt to use us again as a diversionary tactics, but you can't put it, you can't trust that they won't do it again. But my hope is that they will be able to look past using the LGBT community as, I'll emphasize, I keep saying this over and over again, stop using the LGBT community as a diversion or as a scapegoat from other real issues that the electorate would be demanding. And I do want to hope that Ugandans as well will no longer be hoodwinked. Come on, like how, if Parliament brings something over and over again and the president postures himself as a savior of Uganda by saving you from homosexuality, how has that impacted your life? It has not lowered the fuel cost. It has, there are so many variables of really important issues that this law has not solved. All it has done is destroy lives. It has impacted individuals that don't necessarily identify as LGBT. People are afraid of being allies. They're afraid of talking about sexual and reproductive health and rights, sexuality education. So the kind of hate, vigilantism, fear has been promoted by this law, and we are doing our part to ensure that we make this problem go away. And as I said, going into the election years, I would like to think that the president, that he will be above using us as a scapegoat or for that populist vote. It's unacceptable, but that will have to come from Ugandans saying, okay, no, we no longer want this nonsense. Like, come on, you can't be trying to hoodwink us over and over again on this matter that really should not be up for debate. That is a private matter. But instead deal with the issues that Ugandans are demanding. So I'm hoping that Ugandans will not be hoodwinked again, that they will stop frothing on the mouth when they talk about LGBT people. Like, if you want to really protect your children, understand who is the perpetrator, who perpetrates the most, who is raping your girls, and if indeed there is individuals that are perpetrating violence against boys and girls within our community, they will be prosecuted under the laws of Uganda. And you can't, as a Ugandan of sound mind, you can't continuously be lied to and taken for a fool as these laws tend to do. So yeah, I'm hopeful that Ugandans will be smarter moving forward, and that those smart voices will not be shrouded in fear, because it's a fact that people who are smart and are seeing exactly what is going on are afraid to speak out because of the repercussions of intimidation from the state and the legislature, with the neighbors, everyone. So yeah, I really hope that Ugandans will go into the election period with with a lot more vigilantism in protecting the things that matter to them, and demanding that the leaders they want address those, not to divert or to scapegoat a community that has done nothing wrong. We've done nothing wrong, and as I said before, our rights have never been up for debate.
Speaking about Ugandans, omuntu wa wansi, you heard part of what you lead to try to create the change is convene parents of queer persons. And for me, there's no one who is muntu wa wansi more than that parent who's, what has been the sentiments there? I know there's a mother on one of the petitions, but what's that feel in families? What are you hearing about queer people and their families? Before I share my own, maybe I start with you.
So the parents that are affiliated with PIF Like Uganda, we have 10 very powerful mothers. We had one father, unfortunately, he passed away. But these mothers that we've been working with since 2019, first I had to create a safe space for them to first of all identify as being a parent of an LGBT individual, and then unpack or move along the journey with them of coming to terms. For them, it's coming out as a parent of an LGBT individual.
And coming out never ends.
Doesn't come. This coming out for everyone, but particularly for parents and particularly mothers, because we know within our society the burden of raising what is dubbed an unruly child or a spoiled child is usually on the mother. That burden is placed on the mother. Fathers like to the accolades of having a mana wange bichi bichi. If anyone diverges from that path, usually the burden is on the mother. So these mothers are coming from that background of having been placed in a situation where they either protect their child or protect their child. For these specific mothers, there's no option but to protect their child. But we had to go through that journey of learning how to do that in a meaningful way. What that means to be the only ally within your family. What it means to be in conflict with your extended family. All of that. But in this moment, in this debate this year, these amazing mothers were courageous enough to write a letter to the president. I'm sure we all saw this letter. It's the first time this has happened in Africa.
Yes.
And it was a very powerful show of solidarity with all LGBT children, not just the children of these mothers. And I'm extremely proud that, number one, we told them about all the risks of having their names written down that letter, but they told us we can't sit back and do nothing. Like, our children are literally facing death because we had to go through the impact of the bill with them. Like, we're honest with them, this is what is happening, because they had been seeing the news, living in fear every day with their children, how to protect them. So, but also wondering, okay, we have learned how to be meaningful allies of our children. We are no longer calling them derogatory names. We are on that journey of acceptance, but we are doing our best to protect our children. So that letter was powerful. We all read it. I know the president read it, and we understand it is one of the reasons why he sent the bill back to Parliament for those amendments to remove the clause that would have criminalized the identity or the sexual orientation. I would like to think Mama Janet read that letter. I think she did. But it was one of the reasons why the president sent it back, because it was put on his desk. So I would like to inform the audience or LGBT community that we have really fierce parents that are willing to do as much as they can to stand and have their voice be heard for the community. And I honestly believe that these parents are going to be they're going to change the trajectory of LGBT rights in this Uganda and in Africa, because no one can dismiss a mother's love for their child. Like, no one can say you're biased. They dismiss us all the time as activists, but you can't question a mother's love for their child. Like, how dare you? So I envision that these parents are going to be what tips that scale for us, because you can't stand in the way of love for a parent. And I hope that PFLAG Uganda can grow into a much bigger collective of really fierce, an army of parents, an army of mothers that will be ready and willing to fight for the LGBT children, because the line of defense stops there. And while I acknowledge that so many other parents are out there and are silent allies, just to let them know these parents that wrote that letter, that stood so publicly for the LGBT community, are there, and they're willing to take you through their own journeys. You can learn from each other, but more importantly, someone has put their leg out there, and I hope we can see more of this sort of allyship, because you can't dismiss a mother's love for their child. You can't dismiss that. So I'm really proud of his mothers. I didn't know this is what PFLAG would turn into. I
would like you to speak to the parents right there.
Parents.
Take off your attention off me for a second and just speak to parents.
Parents. We have 10 fierce mothers that have stood and are actively fighting for LGBT individuals, for the LGBT children. And I honestly and truly believe that mothers, and I keep using mothers because we know why, but mothers will be kind of that first line of defense in ensuring that the LGBT rights trajectory goes in our favor. I truly believe that you cannot stand in the way of a mother's love or parents' love for their child. Like, no law will ever destroy that. So it's amazing that one of the mothers is petitioner. She's had so much backlash because of that, but she's standing strong, because they often tell me, "Abana bafe, now if we abandon them, who will be there for them?" If a whole parliament can can debate on such an ugly, terrible law targeting our children.
Just resolve
You resolve to stand for their children. So I would encourage other mothers, reach out to Chapter for Uganda. We're happy to welcome you into PFLAG. I make sure the spaces are as safe as possible. But you cannot stay silent as your child is continuously bashed, because parents are able to protect their children in any other circumstances. What about now when your child is facing a death penalty clause, life imprisonment, and a threat to their livelihood, to the core of their being? Because this is what this law is about. It's supposed to really, I don't know, they wanted to destroy us, but we're still here. Anyway, but just to say, there's mothers out there that will go presently with PFLAG Uganda that will take your hand and show you the way towards allyship. So reach out to us through CFE, through your children, and PFLAG Uganda is a safe space for our parents.
Council, I have a question from the audience about how can fathers, we've heard about mothers, the first line of defense, your first ally, how can fathers join this fight, or how can they be part of this journey, part of this fight, in protecting their children? This law talks about protecting the family, but evidently it's actually splitting, not even taking away. It's like totally erasing the role of parents in their children's lives. And the only role they are trying to assert is that of actually oppressing and actually erasing your duty as a parent, but also erasing your child. How can they be more involved?
Yeah, and that's the challenge with this law, because when we were at law school and we were being taught about criminal law, the purpose of criminal law was like to protect people who have been offended, or harmed. So the expectation was that when you're looking at a crime, because there has to be a crime, someone has to be a victim. And then another person has to be a perpetrator. So then court comes in to determine how far the punishment should go, or whether or not there should be punishment in the first place. But the thing about the AHA is that there are no victims. Especially in section 2 and 3, there are absolutely no victims. And the claim is that the victim then becomes society. But then how does society at large become a victim? How will society come collectively and stand in the dock? Who becomes the complainant? Because there has to be a complainant who is the victim, who then gives evidence. And even in the matters that are being tried in court right now, that is the biggest challenge. The state is looking for witnesses to give evidence against a clause, but they can't find, because there are no witnesses. Society cannot collectively come and give evidence against a particular person. So it just brings in turn, society indeed can be collectively wronged, but society cannot be criminally wronged collectively. Criminal wrongs are individual. That is the way criminal law works. At least that's what we were taught. But clearly things are different right now. Maybe the court will tell us how this comes in. How fathers can participate. We know we live in a patriarchal society. The voices of men are dominant. When men talk, everyone else is silenced. Even when we were debating the marriage bill, when they were debating the sexual offences bill, a reverend just had to stand up and, even the AHA, he stood up and said, but how can't you want women? They are so sweet. And
it was so condescending.
That was taken as gospel truth.
And then everyone is uploading all that
Exactly.
nonsense.
So we need men to correct fellow men. Because the way our society is constructed, men will most likely only listen to fellow men. Women, we are brought up in such a way that you will listen to your fellow women, but also take the voice of the man as superior. So we need them to reel back the homophobia.
I'm seated here and I'm checking myself.
They need to reel it back because they are the ordained voices of our society. And I do my fingers like this because I'm a feminist. I don't agree with that position, but unfortunately that is the society we live in. They need to reel it back. And we see the forefront runners of the hysteria and the homophobia have been men under the disguise of religious leaders, going to their pulpits, spewing hate on media platforms, spewing hate. Not very many women did it. Okay, maybe our sister among, but
Your sister.
By the way,
Those two speakers. Yeah, that's a whole different story.
That is a story for another day.
Indeed.
But the dominant people who drove the homophobia have been men. So we need them to come on board to chip back at some of that rhetoric. Because it was driven again by the patriarchy where the men are the dominant voice. So they have a lot of work to do. And for everyone else to stop. Don't just share. You know, there are some pictures that are shared on those parents group WhatsApps and the different platforms on Facebook. That disinformation, that misinformation, they just keep sharing and they keep propagating that cycle of viciousness and misinformation. That needs to stop. Let the buck stop with you.
Should we perhaps pull receipts and lists of the men that we know are actually gay? That's a story for another day. Thank you so much. We are concluding. Thank you so much, Rose Wakikona, Council and God, and Claire Byarugaba, Healer, and convene of mothers for good.
Yes.
And CFE really for giving us this platform to be able to have these conversations. I think next time we're going to have it over a pot of malua or, tea or malua of your choice. And we can have that discussion. But Talking Spaces is really a space for us to share, for us to have conversations in person, to educate, to uphold voices and faces of community. And we will keep inviting you to these spaces to have these conversations with us. The Anti Homosexuality Act is still here. There are different dimensions of discussions around it. And the CFE, of course, is championing and holding space for everyone. And I don't like to say voiceless because everyone has a voice, except for the space where that voice can be expressed and heard. So this is a space, a talking space, and we'll come back to discuss more. I really want to leave by giving out a heartfelt, deep from my soul and my heart, a shout out to parents. Whether you're in Kamoli, whether you're on the petition, whether you're part of PFLAG, we feel you. We might not see you, but we feel you, and there's support for you. Your children are looking up to you. The legislators, some of them are parents, some are not parents, but every parent who has stood up, who has spoken out, who has hugged, who has just maybe tapped or rubbed their child's shoulder, feeling their pain, we applaud you and we feel you and we see you. And we want you to be encouraged that your love is not going to go unappreciated. The second shout out goes to people who have been brave enough, just like the parents, but brave enough to put their name on these public documents have been educated that anything that goes to court becomes is put in the public domain. So knowing that there's a dagger on your back, there's an axe ready to chop you to pieces, and you still took the step to say, I am going to defend the rights of a minority. And then to the members of parliament who stood up with all the bullying, with all the immoral hooliganism towards them. We see you, we feel you, and we support you, and we really thank you for the support, for you standing up amidst that crowd to say that we are important and we need protection.
And we'll stand on the right side.
And we'll stand on the right side of history. Thank you so much. Unless you have any last words to part, I will bring it to a close.
The Christmas gift is coming.
The healer has spoken. What is council saying?
I agree with her.
And to that, I say, Ase, I'm looking around for a bottle to bless the ancestors for more, strength.
Well, it's
but
raining.
I believe it.
It's
I
raining,
believe it.
so-
It's raining.
Yeah.
So I believe that we'll take it. And for anyone, any community member who is struggling somewhere because of this law, but you're able to watch this, we're sending huge hugs. There's love from this side, and there's love around you. Just take a moment and look and look around. You will find it. This has been the CFE Talking Spaces. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for watching. Together, we can change this country. Thank you.